The Lisbon Treaty, as part of the EU, was the Tony Blair government that signed up to the Lisbon Treaty, which was the freedom of movement for EU citizens to move around the EU, which included the UK at the time. But that caveat of the expanded EU to include Eastern Europe, the former Soviet states, those poorer areas of the country, to freedom of movement into the wealthier parts of the EU, Germany, France, and the UK. Um, that freedom of movement with the expanded EU came with a caveat. The Lisbon Treaty gave each country the option to suspend the freedom of movement for the expanded East European countries, the people that we love from Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, um, for up to 10 years before they could relocate to another EU country. Now, France chose to defer that right for 10 years for those citizens just joining the EU straight away. Tony Blair was the exception, and he granted full access to all the people within the EU straight away. Um, what he did was allow those cheap, cheaper employees to come into the UK and start a trend from the legal EU migration instead of waiting 10 years to give those new countries time to adapt into the EU, bringing that cheap labour in. That drives British people out of jobs. It keeps productivity lower because companies don't invest in ways of saving labour costs. It drives the average salary in the UK down. The UK people should be earning more money, but if businesses have got access to cheaper labour from abroad, from the EU in the early part of the 20th century, then it's going to keep everybody else's wages down. And that's now metamorphosed into the crisis going on in Europe and around the world with economic migrants from the population boom countries where there is no work and the people are looking for work and using the asylum regime created after the Second World War to move into a new country and get benefits and jobs and income way above what they could get in their home country. And this all started with the Tony Blair regime 25 years ago. So it's very hard to accept in the UK the political elite chopping and changing the way they do, where they knew that a migrant from the UK had caused the Southport massacres of 3 kids that were dancing, and yet the leadership accused far-right people of those riots when it was nothing to do with that. It was people trying to defend their children in the UK, and still we get these hypocrisies coming within this government about how they're going to change and change the border. If 1 million people are coming into Britain illegally every year, how is that going to work if your new tougher regulations are only aimed at reducing it by 50,000? When in fact, under law, if somebody has broken the law on entering the country, they could be criminalised and deported straight away. But the current government chose to do that. They had a scheme to deport people to a third party country, Rwanda, a year ago, and they chose not to do that. Australia do that, and they don't have the boat issue anymore that they used to have before they introduced their repatriation scheme to Mali. So it is an issue, and it compromises expats looking to relocate legitimately living and working abroad. However, do it properly, make your life in your new country, and protect your family from taxes, and protect your family and business investments. For more information, guidance on how to do that, ProACT know how, contact us at proactpartnership.com.